Okay, today we're going to be talking about Death Diary 69. I hear you jittering in the background there. Very, very funny. 69, of course. How can we forget? And that is the announcement of 1.6. Now, obviously, 1.6 was already announced a couple of, well, maybe like a week ago by Wiz, the game director for Solaris, on Twitter. However, the first Death Diary called Beyond Utopia has now arrived. So let's have a chat about what is to be expected from 1.6. Adams, named, of course, after the one and only Douglas Adams. Now, this is a major quality of life patch. What does this mean? Basically, it is an improvement patch based around current systems and handling things like UI, mechanics a little bit better, and making sure that everybody has a lot of fun playing the game. And obviously this is only possible because people keep on buying expansions. So some of you may not agree with the expansion or model from Paradox, sometimes also referred to as DLC, but I absolutely loathe that term because it should be in marketing and never outside of, anywhere in the public. However, these sort of expansions are only made possible by the fact that you guys are actively buying into like sales and stuff like that. So anyway, let's get underway. No major features additions this time around. No accompanying paid DLC. There's that term I don't like. And basically, they started working on that immediately after Banks in Utopia went into code freeze. Now, that was around 2 weeks before Banks 1.5 and Utopia were released. Now, right now, we already have over 100 bug fixes and usability UI additions and tweaks. There's also a large list of items that are in the backlog. Now, some of these items go all the way back to Clark. I think that was a 1.2, 1.3. Highline was 1.4. So, yeah, even though there is a list here, that doesn't necessarily mean that these items are to be added to the game. There's no exact release date and use, known for this so far. And, it has a bunch of items that had to be cut due to time constraints. So, Beyond Utopia, back in Death Diary 50, they already had a list of things that were priorities going forward from Heinlein and Leviathans, which was the previous expansion. If you don't have it, go and pick it up. It is awesome. A number of these things have since been added to the game, such as ship appearance, more potential for Empire customization, such as building competitive tall empires. I don't necessarily agree with that. I've been doing some testing with competitive tall empires. I just never managed to get enough fleet power to do anything. Global food, which is now a thing. Constructing space habitats and ring worlds, which is now a thing. Still, I don't think it's balanced very well. I had a bit of a play around that earlier today, and I feel it's way too late in the game for that to be a thing. Factions that are proper interest groups, which is now a thing since 1.5. The ability to set rights and obligation for a particular species within your empire, also added in 1.5 and Utopia. So, what can we expect in the future? Now, this does not necessarily mean that the following list will be added in 1.6. It's just a list of items that they want to do, and some of them may be on the cutting floor or be added in 1.7 or maybe even in 1.8 somewhere in the far along future. Of course, if you're watching this video sometime in the future, like 1.8, brah, that was like a year ago. I know, right? I expect this game to last for at least another 4 years in terms of development. Let's put it that way. Anyway, let's talk about the items they want to add as of right now. Deeper federations that start off as loose alliances and eventually being turned into single states through diplomatic maneuvering. That would be a huge boon. You'll be able to actually properly use federations and actually turn into a singular empire, similar to what you would expect from, say, United Federation or Confederate States, such as United States of America, or even Germany with its Bundeslande, where it used to be individual states and they all came together into one larger state. Next month, super weapons and planet killers. Now, this is the thing regarding these. These have so much potential to be completely and utterly imbalanced. I expect them to be incredibly powerful. Same thing with Planet Killers. A lot of resources. Everybody hates you for it unless there's an extremely dignified reason for using them. More story, events, and reactive narratives that give a sense of an unfolding story as you play. To me, of this entire list, it's by far the most important thing. Having more story events and reactive narratives is something that keeps the game alive in the mid-game. Right now, we've got the extinct empires, which kind of float you along until the mid-game if you don't expand enough. Like I said again before with the tall empires, you'll never really finish these, and I really hope that we're going to see more of this stuff. Stuff that is far more complicated than we've seen, for instance, in Horizon Signal, which, in my personal opinion, is probably one of the most convoluted and kind of awesome still narrative within the game, and the fact they've got Mr. Kennedy on board means that they have the story writing prowess to actually pull this off. More interesting mechanics for pre-FTL civilizations. There's already been some patching going on with pre-FTL civilizations. It did not have a strike through on this list, which means that there is still stuff to be done there. We may actually see something really cool there. Maybe something along the lines of some Stargate-esque material where a empire is flown into the next era, or even being able to interact with them on a more interesting level. A galactic community with interstellar politics and a space UN. The problem I have with this is that a lot of people always have the argument that a game post World War II or even the Korean War or Vietnam would be awesome. Like we had East versus West a couple years ago that never was released and was cancelled, sadly, and that had a lot of these elements. The problem we have these days, with especially the UN, is that, well, there's a war, people get punished, and nobody gains anything, and the status quo is retained. That's something I'm worried here. Of course, if there's something like a Security Council with people voting stuff, that sort of thing. So this is kind of interesting, as well as, you know, the ability to vote on should we or should we not take down the Praetorian as they slowly but steadily come towards us. Basically, I'm worried about being bogged down in bureaucracy. Buildable Titans and Dreadnoughts. Now, this is an interesting one. This is people have been asking for this for a long time. There's a lot of mods out there that actually do this, adding things like battle cruisers and pocket battleships and whatnot. Even, you know, the flagships. Flagships are no longer in the game, by the way, as of 1.5.1, with the removal of the leader ships, which are basically ships that are significantly more powerful. The battleships video is now completely out of date because of that. But yeah, interesting. I hope that you would need to build separate fleet yards specifically for them, because it kind of would make sense not being able to build them in space dock, or at least having a large sort of production thing similar to mega structures and all that stuff. Reworking the endgame crisis to be more balanced against each shudder and a size state of the galaxy. Endgame crises right now, especially the AI one. The AI one right now is neutered into the ground. It's not very good. I've never had any problems defeating it. Unbidden, of course, is way too strong. The Praetorian, they drop on you with 1.5 million fleet power. A bit more balance there would be nice, or at least have a little bit more narrative there would be cool. Or even maybe, you know, another event there. Like right now we have the War in Heaven, which can be interpreted as a crisis event, or as well as the end of cycle, which also spawns a psionic monstrosity, which can also be interpreted as a endgame crisis. So reworking the endgame crisis is good go forward to make the endgame a lot more interesting, whilst you're toiling away trying to build those ring worlds. Reworking the war, reworks the war to address the Doom Stack issue, making strategical and tactical layers of warfare more interesting and less micro-intensive. So right now, Doom Stack refers to giant fleets that are basically used as sort of hammer approaches to small problems. You know, when you have a hammer, then everything looks like a nail sort of approach. So right now the AI generally likes to move their entire fleet into one blob and moving your way in the war is basically decided into one engagement. Having reworking there with more modular fleets that are roaming around, taking down your infrastructure would be great. Tactical layers of warfare is something that may be interesting, and we'll have to take a look at that. Deeper mechanics and unique portraits for synthetics. A lot of people have been saying, yo, all these portraits, where are the synthetic versions? We only have humanoid synthetics. Well, yeah, it kind of does make sense. So deeper mechanics for synthetics would be kind of cool, so that would probably be a Utopia feature or a or at least an expansion onto Utopia, or anything in the base game that involves robotics, which are still part of the regular tech tree, of course, in Utopia. It's a little bit reworked with the Ascendancy perks. With Utopian Banks, we decided that rather than divide our focus, we wanted to have an update and expansion fully focused on exclusively on Empire customization and internal politics, which makes perfect sense. I still think it's not particularly perfect, because you can't really have that many issues with, you know, fracturing your empire late game. Everybody has similar ethics. There's not really many problems there. So what the next expansion is going to be, an update or story pack is going to be about, so that's still pending. But at least with the list from above, as I mentioned before, it gives you a good idea of where Stellaris may or may not go. One thing that is not listed here and has been alluded to, like I mentioned at the start of the video, for a long time is trade. Now, a lot of the functionality in the game would not support any sort of trade-based systems. Right now, I don't feel there is any mechanics in the game that allow for active trading outside of the diplomacy window. The thing is that Paradox is very focused on building systems first and then expanding on those systems. This is also why we don't have any fleet intelligence aside from maybe the Sentry Array, which is one of the megastructures that were added in Utopia. So, considering trade and fleet intelligence aren't part of this, it could be interesting to... Yeah, I don't expect anything to change regarding that until at least 1.7. So there you go. Also, I also would be highly surprised if Dreadnoughts and Titans will be in this patch. So we will see how this is going to go. Now, there will be a free graphical content update in Atoms. You will be able to get more rooms. Hooray! More rooms to choose from at the start of the game. Anyway, that wraps up Dev Diary 69. Once again, I hear you giggling in the background, you filthy-minded animals. And we're going to take it from here. If this was informative to you, then feel free to drop a comment below and or subscribe. The like button is there. If you want to dislike this, the dislike button is there as well. And yeah, should be good. I'm tempted. What's the day today? It's currently the 22nd of March 2017. So if you're watching this in the far future, hello, far future. Don't travel back and kill us. And it looks like that I am going to be doing some streaming in a couple hours. So that is going to happen too. Exciting stuff. Until next time, take good care of yourselves and, of course, each other.